That's the wrong song. That's how we end, remember? Sorry.
You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I'll tell you. I don't know. But it's a tradition. And because of our traditions, every one of us knows who he is and what God expects him to do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Torah. I'm Rabbi Tzvi Jacobson with NRM Streamcast, and we'll spend our time talking Torah, learning stuff, and having fun while we learn. You can always send your questions and comments to our mailbag at letstalktorah@gmail.com, and of course, I will answer as many as I can, or you can check out our amazing webpage, letstalktorah.net. That's letstalktorah.net. The shows are there, the archives are there. You can search over there. You can leave questions, comments. You can join our show, all kinds of good stuff, all wrapped up in our webpage at letstalktorah.net. And, of course, the all-important donate button that allows us to keep the show going. If you can hit that donate button and help us out with a donation to just help us take care of our expenses, help us spread out, let more people enjoy what you're enjoying. And, of course, we are still in the top 10 in FeedSpot's 10 Best Jewish Book Podcasts. And we are at number 5 today, so we are pretty steady. The weather, getting a little chilly out there. A little rainy today, a little chilly. Got to turn on the heat in the house. But in here in the studios of NRM Streamcast, we, of course, are toasty and warm. It's always good. You go into somebody's house. Nobody likes to be cold. You go into somebody's house. You want the warm atmosphere. You also would like it to have the windows closed if it's cold outside. And probably in Abraham's tent, out in the desert, it was probably nice and warm with a nice breeze blowing through, because everybody knows that Abraham's tent was open in all directions. Abraham saw you coming. He was out there to greet you, to bring you into the house. You ever go to somebody's house and there's different ways of greeting people, right? What's the first question I asked my class today? I said, we were discussing appropriate questions and not appropriate questions. Now, children have different ideas, but I needed to bring across a point. How do you say hello to somebody? How do you greet somebody? Do you say, can I get you something to eat? Can I get you something to drink? Can I show you where the bathroom is? Right? Or do I come up with other kinds of silly questions? Who are you? What are you doing here? What brings you to town? Sometimes those are dangerous questions, and we're going to talk about this later in the show. But you can be sure, and we're going to talk about it later, that Abraham knew exactly how to ask a question, how to bring somebody into his house, and he lived for kindness. This is the Torah portion that we talk about the kindness of Abraham, and we juxtapose it with Sodom. But Abraham is a few days after circumcision, 3 days after circumcision. God does not want Abraham to be bothered with guests, so he brings out a special sun to make it super hot. No one wants to travel. But Abraham is desperate for guests. It's almost like the lesson for us. As God knew that it was too hot. God knew that he didn't want Abraham to be troubled with guests. And God knew that Abraham was going to fight for guests. Maybe it's a lesson for us. In other words, what's the attitude? Okay, good. I don't got to do no kindness today. Nobody's around. Excellent. I'm free. No, that's not how we want to look at things. What we want is we crave the opportunity to do good deeds. That's what our attitude should really be. We crave the opportunity, and doing kindness is an opportunity. It makes me into a better person. I'm actually helping my daughter. Help is a generous word. I am helping my daughter. I mean, it's not just help. It's like doing the report. But I am helping my daughter do a report. And one of the things that we're discussing is when I do kindness, when I do good deeds, when I give charity, it makes me into a different person. You know, I can give you $1, right? Just so I can say I gave you something, or I can stretch a little bit and I can do more. And in that case, not only am I getting the reward for the charity, but I'm actually making myself into a better person. And that's what Avram is always looking for. He's always looking to strive and help others. Why was Avram doing this? Well, first of all, you have to know that's Avram. Abraham, he lives for kindness, but he's going to use his love of doing kindness for others to teach people about God. That's clearly what Abraham wants to do. He wants to do kindness. He wants to help others, and when he brings them into his tent, he's going to use that as the gateway to teach them about God. It says in the Medrash that you sat down and he started to serve you, and he said, I would like you to make a blessing. And the person would say, blessing? What? What's a blessing? And he could start to explain. The guy's, I don't really want to make a blessing. So he says, okay, then, here's the menu, with the prices, $100 for a glass of water. Right? Who knows what the food costs? And the guy says, whoa. What's it all the cost over here? So Abraham says, here's my rule. If you make blessings in my house, it's all free. If you're not willing to make a blessing, we're in the middle of a desert. There's not any grocery stores around here. There's no restaurants. So it's going to cost you. So you pick. Okay, could you explain me how that blessing thing works? And again, a blessing is just praising, thanking God for all the things he gives us. Glass of water, food, different kinds of food. And they're our general standard blessings we make all day long. So God is visiting Abraham. Now, I don't know if they're having a regular conversation. For the likelihood is God's presence is just there, just being there. I think I could enjoy, I hope, just God's presence being here. I don't have to have a conversation. God is right here, right next to me. And God sees, he knows Abraham is thirsting for those guests, so he sends the 3 angels. But the verse refers to the 3 angels as if they are regular people. So for Abraham, they look like regular people. Abraham runs out and says, God, do me a favor, don't leave. Right? Excuse me if you don't mind, but I got to take company. I got to do it. So Abraham goes out. He goes to the one that looks like he's in charge. Please stay. I'll give you a little bread and water. And they say yes. Now Abraham will serve them a feast. But what happens is, if I offer you little, then I can't go wrong. I made a feast, and you can't complain because I offered you bread and water. So I said little, and I did a lot. But imagine I invited you to my home for supper. You have your imagination of what a supper could be. Maybe you think a supper is lasagna. Maybe you think a supper is pizza. Maybe you think supper is chicken or cutlets or maybe a gourmet meal. You can have a lot of imaginations when I invite you to my home for supper. And if I serve you a bowl of cornflakes, you're going to be very, very disappointed. I tell the story. I was a very polite person. When I was in Israel, I was probably about 20. So a friend invited me over for a Sabbath meal. Now, he warned me that he was a vegetarian. I didn't even know what that meant. But, okay. So I go to his house, and he was a vegetarian. So instead of the normal Shabbos afternoon, your cholent, meat, liver, eggs, fish, he served cold, homemade pizza. And I'm very polite, and I ate it, but I could never go back again. That's not what I'm expecting, for a meal. And it wasn't because the person was poor. That's just what they like to eat. So if you offer me bread and water, anything above that is a benefit. But if you tell me you're giving me a Shabbos meal and it's cold homemade pizza, that's just not what I was expecting. So Abraham is the same, right? Abraham's going to offer you bread and water. And then he's going to serve you a banquet. So these angels, each one had a job. Angels, you have to know, an angel has one job. An angel has one job. One's going to inform Abraham he's going to have a son. One's going to heal Abraham. And one is actually on his way down to Sodom to destroy Sodom. There's a famous story here in Detroit. The old Rosh Yeshiva not alive anymore, Rabbi Bakst. So the story goes that when he was in Shanghai, he was from the Mir Yeshiva that escaped Poland and Europe during World War II, and they made their way to Shanghai. It's all kinds of miraculous stories along the way. And he got very sick when he was there. I think it was like an appendicitis or something. It was very, very serious. And he died. He tells us he died. He went up to heaven. And they met him, and they said, we have to ask you a question. What's the difference between a person and an angel? I'm pretty sure I have the story, the gist of the story for sure I have right. An angel has one job. What about a person? What, a person has multiple jobs? So Rabbi said no. A person also really only has one job. He just thinks he has a lot of jobs. But really, really, a person is no different than an angel, and we both have one job. But again, we get confused. An angel doesn't get confused. So they said, that's a great answer. And he said, well, you're going back down and you're going to live. And he did. And he became head of a school, a very famous school here in Detroit. But anyway, so each angel has one job. So they said that Sarah's going to have a boy in a year from now. Sarah laughs to herself because, a few guys are in the tent and they're saying a blessing. It doesn't mean anything to her, but Abraham already figured out they were angels. So God tells Abraham, Sarah's laughing. Now, Sarah in her mind says, my husband's too old. She's laughing, my husband's too old. God tells Abraham, Sarah laughed and she said, she's too old. So Abraham says, Sarah, you're laughing, a blessing? You don't just laugh at a blessing. And she, of course, wants to deny it because it was in her head. But Abraham pressed the issue and he said, you can't laugh. Even a regular person gives you a blessing, you thank them. You answer, Amen. We like blessings. And sure enough, by the way, Isaac is born in a year. Anyways, so these angels now go on their way down to Sodom. Their job is, only two of them. One is going to save Lot and his family. One is gonna destroy Sodom. But they pause. They pause along the way. They pause along the way to give Abraham a chance to pray. But before we get into their stopping along the way to allow Abraham to pray, we need to know who is Sodom. Sodom is a really wicked place. They make laws against kindness. They don't want anybody coming in, taking their money, and leaving town. So they have laws. One of the laws was, if a poor person comes to town, you can give him money, but no one is allowed to give him food. That way the guy won't survive. Like, you're going to die. And then we'll get our money back. But there was one poor guy that's walking around town, and he's living. He's alive. It's impossible. So they set up their spies, and they saw it happened to have been Lot's daughter actually was giving him some bread every night. Oh, that's against the law in our town.